Hello, lovely people. My name is Rohit, and I welcome you all to the Certify podcast series. In this series, we are going to invite experts and delve into the landscape of IoT security. To talk about the problems, the risks, vulnerabilities, and the security solutions out there in the market, we have invited an expert who is an entrepreneur, leader, and a keynote speaker in the space of cybersecurity. Our guest is Mirko, CEO and co-founder of Ashwin GmbH. He brings in tons of experience and track record of research. So without further ado, let's get into talk with Mirko. We are going to talk about the IoT security, the landscape, and the risks which are present in IoT security.
It's a pleasure, Rohit.
So Mirko, I know you for last 8 years, but I'm pretty sure you are in the IoT space for long. So when did it all start and how did it all start?
Oh, that's a good question. I think I was in the IoT space even when the term IoT maybe was not already known as it is today. So I think it was really like early 2000 when I was in the hacker community, maker community, and we start connecting things to the internet. I think we haven't called it IoT yet. It was cyber physical systems or whatever. It's a different term for it, but it was definitively the IoT.
Nice. And what was your first IoT device or IoT toy that you started working and started doing something with it?
I was working like almost many people doing it, like that they are starting using sensors and then connect the sensors to the internet to collect the sensor data. I think this was as well my first IoT applications. However, when I really think about it, I was playing Lego Mindstorms.
Yeah.
And it's a programmable device, which is now highly internet connected. So this was as well a toy I was just buying for my kid, and then we were playing Lego Mindstorms and stuff like that. So there's a long experience with connected assets.
Right. So in the beginning, for sure, it's more about the functionality part. The security was far thought in the future. So when did it all get serious with the security, where it was not only about connecting the devices together and collecting the data and building dashboards, and then it became about the security of devices and the risks which the IoT devices bring in the ecosystem.
I mean, there's a joke in the industry, the S in IoT stands for security.
Yeah.
I mean, this joke is so old, but obviously it's still valid. It's a good question. I think when I was starting working with IoT, I was not thinking so much about security. Why? Because I was so lucky that I have connected a sensor, and I was just getting the data on an internet dashboard. I mean, this is the moment of truth in IoT, and you're so happy. So and the early IoT was very innocent. Mm-hmm. We were just building things. Of course, as I'm closely related to the hacker community, it was always clear that there's as well a security implication on what we are doing. So if you ask me if I have a smart home, no. And there are good reasons why. So my intention was never to build a smart home. However, when it started, I think the main shake we got in the IoT space was in 2016, I believe so, when the Mirai botnet was born. And this was the first time that we see that you can build a massive botnet just based upon cheap IP cameras, which are completely unsecured. And by that, the developer of that botnet were able to carry out DDoS attacks, which has been the strongest DDoS attacks of that time. I mean, this was really scary.
Right. And I have read your contribution in ANISA reports, and that was around 2017, 2018 when you started contributing in these reports where good practices were outlined by the ANISA and the other expert groups for the IoT space. And around the same time, in 2018, you co-founded with Sven Ral's Ashwin GmbH. So, what was the idea of Ashwin GmbH, and what kind of challenges it addresses for IoT devices?
Yeah, as I said, it was 2016 was the Mirai botnet. So, which was really a shake in the industry and as well a shake for regulators and authorities. Obviously, some people believe that this could be only a cyber weapon, which has been shown by a nation state or whatever, because it was so massive. What we've seen was so massive. At the end, it has been two teenagers in the United States building that botnet. Fun fact, I think they have been arrested and then working for the FBI. However, as I said, by that time, authorities, I think this was a wake-up call for regulators as well, that this industry, which has been highly not regulated, needs a regulation because the industry is failing on cybersecurity. And this was the point when I was stepping in as an expert as well, dealing with the European Commission and the ENISA. But as well, I was thinking about, well, when regulators will step in, it means that there will be a time where companies need to carry out certain cybersecurity measures and implementations. And then the question is, will they go for a make or buy decision? And I believe make is good, but it's hard, and even to secure make. So obviously there will be a market for tools which will support companies to implement security in IoT. And this was just the idea of Ashwin.
Right. And you talked about the regulatory environment and the standard. How does it look like at this point since 2016? I think there have been multiple regulations, and the regulatory body and the policy bodies are also quite active in the IoT space. And now we see from EU, there is a CRA regulation which deals with the products, with the digital elements. So how it's going to the regulation and standards, how much they have changed the security of IoT devices, and how far more we have to go on this regard?
I mean, regulation is an interesting, boring topic.
Yeah.
I mean, if you read through all these regulation documents, it's really boring. However, it's interesting because what is the impact of a regulation? I mean, there are two effects. One effect is, of course, that you're raising awareness in the industry, but you can only raise awareness if there are penalties connected to the regulation. And second, which is as well interesting, how a certain regulation in a certain region like Europe is fitting into a global trend. This is also interesting. And what we have seen in the past years is that cybersecurity and cybersecurity for IoT has got more attraction on governments worldwide. Mm-hmm. So, for example, in the US government has really carried out a lot of presidential bills on cybersecurity. It's a little bit different to Europe. Right. We have the European Commission working really on a large set of different cybersecurity regulations, and all will affect anyway the IoT. UK, even China has tied up its cybersecurity regulation. And this is on the one side, it's good. On the other side, it's challenging, because if you are a company and you are a producer of IoT products, or you want to bring IoT products to a certain market, you need to be compliant to all these different regulations in different regions. I think that's super challenging.
And how is it from the manufacturer's perspective, where time to market and the cost which is associated with these IoT devices and IoT products, which is also quite important for them, and when they combine it with the security, for sure it increases their development cycle. It also increases the cost of IoT devices. So what would you say to the manufacturers to find this balance between these two?
I mean, there's a ideal world and there's the reality here.
Yeah.
Especially if we are in markets with hype cycles. I think it's it's really challenging, because on hype cycles you have a very strong move, which is where the priority is time to market. Be very quick on the market. We have seen all this VC-driven IoT business.
Yeah.
Fun fact, we see the same now with AI-driven business.
Right.
Don't ask me about cybersecurity of AI systems. It's a mess, obviously, because everybody needs to step in so quick into the cybersecurity in the AI market. But for the IoT, it was the same. I mean, it's if there's money involved, investors involved, everybody's pushing to get their products to the market. So by that, product first, security later. Yeah.
Right. This has been the trend, and I think it has to change, especially when we talk about the CRA regulations. It brings in the lot of rules which mandates that if there is a cybersecurity problem with these devices which has the digital element, for example, the devices which will be used in the critical infrastructure.
Yeah, I think the core issue is liability.
Right.
And what we have seen, like on previous efforts on regulation, there have been, even in Europe, there was the Cybersecurity Act before. So it's not the first time that Europe is stepping into trying to regulate the IoT. But the Cybersecurity Act was pushing more for voluntary security schemes for the industry. And what we have seen is that maybe the majority of the industry is not following voluntary principles. And by that you need this liability.
Right. From the liability aspect, would you say that in CRA, where they put 15 million, I think that's the penalty, and some cases it's like percentage of the gross income of the organization, and also on the C-level employees of the organization would be liable if any kind of problem is found in these devices, or where they are found liable of any problems?
I think it's raising the awareness on the management boards.
Right.
So that's important, because if a manager is liable, they're looking more to save their future. However, no, that's good. I think the liability is super important. If everything will be executed, that's another topic. Because, as you know, even authorities need to scale if they want to go for fining everybody who is violating to the CRA. This will never happen. So they need to have a look, like for the GDPR, that there will be definitively some counter actions by the authorities on vendors which maybe have a market leading position.
Yeah.
Or critical to certain markets, or that's what we already see with the GDPR or with the Digital Data Act. The same. So you see now there are certain companies on the watch list which are notorious violating principles.
Right. Recently, I read an article that CRA regulations, they are gonna by maybe end of April would become a law. And then the IoT device manufacturers, they will have a time frame of 3 years to comply with the regulations, with the rules of the law. What do you think the status of are the other manufacturers? Let's talk about German market. Are they ready, or are they going in that direction where they are trying to find some solutions for IoT security?
It depends definitively on the size of the company. If you look into large enterprises, like major supplier for the industry, which are supplying digital connected assets to the industry, with a global position, being stock market registered and so on, this kind of companies are definitively preparing very intensively to the CRA, and they have the ability to do that because they have the manpower, they have the knowledge. They have the tools already in place. My concern is, are the companies, the small and medium-sized companies.
Sure.
Because they already have not the ability to implement cybersecurity with their own infrastructure. They don't have the people, they don't have the tools, they don't have the money. So this is really concerning.
Yeah, that's true. You briefly mentioned about AI, and now we see that AI applications are coming in the IoT space. We are seeing the convergence of IoT and AI technology. So this also brings in not only the value, but also the risks, cyber risks, especially in the IoT space. How do you see this, and how would it play out in the future?
It's a super interesting topic. I mean, we are now, let's say, we are not at the first wave of AI, but we see now is a new wave, which is much stronger than everything we've seen in the past. The idea to put AI on IoT devices is not a new idea. It's very logical. For example, take a satellite. If you have a satellite for vision control with vision control systems, Earth observations, and for example, you want to do an Earth observation on bushfires, which is an Earth observation example. Then you need to send always the full image data from the satellite to the Earth. Right. And on the Earth, you're doing this kind of analytics and mark sections in the picture where could be a possible bushfire. This is this is not clever at the end, because I mean, it would be much better if the satellite could just process the image, identify a bushfire, mark it on the picture, and just only send this marked picture to the Earth, because this will allow to save bandwidth. Right. And on satellite connections, bandwidth is almost everything. So I think this is very important that you have AI on the edge. For an autonomous driving car, it's the same, or for a drone, it's the same. If it can do image processing on the edge, it just needs to send the results of the processing to a centralized cloud service, which is as well a bandwidth topic. Right. So there are many topics out there where it makes sense that you have AI on the edge. And this is definitively something which is already applied and which will be applied on a higher level in the future. Now, towards cybersecurity, two things. First of all, for a vendor of an IoT device running AI on the edge, it means that he needs to fulfill the CRA, Cyber Resilience Act, but he will also comply to the AI Act, right, which is challenging. Second, AI system is not like a software system, a determined world. I mean, on a software system, you have a code, your source code. So you're running your source code and your functions. You know what you're putting into a function and what are the values you have to expect it to get out of a function. So it's usually what you do is debugging, analyzing source code. You analyze source code for malicious elements and so on. So we are very used on how to apply cybersecurity on source code, even if the world of cybersecurity and source code is worse. But if you do it right, you can do it. I mean, we know how to do this. For AI, it's like you're running a black box on top of your source code engine. So what is the security state of the black box? Right. There are a lot of questions about it. You can't use a source code scanner to identify if this is a malicious device, yes or not. You can't use an antivirus tool. If the virus is created by your AI. I mean, that's and the proof of concepts are already all out there.
One of the challenge that I see when AI gets in contact with IoT is the data and privacy challenges which bring in, because AI requires a lot of data, and this data will be coming from IoT devices. And the second challenge that I see, that there is a bias when there is a AI solution, when there is a machine learning model, it's learning itself from the data which is coming to it. Inherently, it generates this bias in the system, and I think that's these are really quite challenging topic, especially if these devices, these are part of an autonomous system which is working and which is installed in a critical infrastructure.
And the bias is a very good topic. I mean, obviously in software, we may say, well, the bias is the bug.
Yeah.
But it's not so easy. Have you seen, like, when Google was deploying its new AI system for image generation and people were just generating historic images, like generate me a picture of the founding people of the United States, and then you had a white, an Indian, a black.
Yeah.
I mean, this was definitively put in, like, Google want to avoid bias so that only white people are on pictures, but they missed that this bias is based on the context, and they had no idea how to put it into how to adjust bias to context, which means at the end the bias control was a bug. So they were fixing a bug and introducing a bug which are affecting just on a certain behavior of the system. This is quite typical how bug fixing is working in software as well. I mean, I know many times that developers were fixing a bug. Mm-hmm. Okay, problem solved, but they have introduced 3 new bugs by that to a system. That's all the reason why is complexity. But debugging in AI is much more complex than debugging a software.
Right. Coming back to the core topic of IoT security, if I ask you, what are the 3 most challenges for IoT devices in terms of IoT security?
Well, first of all, I believe it's hardware security. So because IoT has a supply chain, usually you're not building your own semiconductor.
Yeah.
So you need to source your semiconductor from a certain supplier. And you need to trust that the semiconductor is already safe and secure from a hardware perspective. So this is a huge challenge because we have seen in the past that as well many security problems are based on the hardware level. Mm-hmm. Second one, I think it's the software supply chain. So for on the first movement of IoT devices, we were used maybe to build our own software stacks because the devices had less capabilities, less computing power, less memories. So you were just simply programming your own C+ code, applying to a certain stack. Others are doing that still with assembler, whatever, full respect. But why? Because this was the only way to create very efficient code, which can be operated on low processing and low memory devices.
Right.
And this is affecting the battery power and so on. So many requirements. Now what we see is that more full-blown stacks are used in IoT devices.
It's because of this edge computing.
Exactly.
The computing is happening where the data is generated.
Exactly. It's happening because of edge computing. Hypervisor technology is as well the same, so that people say, well, why we want to deploy a Kubernetes cluster to an IoT device. For hardware engineers, it sounds horrible, but that's how industry works. Like we are trying to virtualize the software layers. And by that, the software as well is more complicated, which is deployed to the device. And the problem will be there, the software supply chain. If you run a full operating Linux stack on your IoT device, you need to be aware what kind of libraries are in there and what are the vulnerabilities and so on,
right.
And how to fix it, how to patch it. So that's the second huge challenge. The third is the user.
Yeah.
Because if you implement security on devices, obviously maybe onboarding devices is getting more complicated. So as a user, we are used to have a very comfortable, lazy way to bring our IoT devices in operation. Mm-hmm. In the past, that was the reason why users were not changing their master passwords. Like it's admin.
Right.
Very simple. Or there's no password set on a device, or wrong configuration so that it's visible on the internet. So how to implement onboarding and deboarding of IoT devices, which can be easily done by users in a way that it's not an obstacle, so that it's very natural and that this is secure. To me, Apple is one of the best company who's doing that.
Right.
If you if you onboard your Apple Watch, I mean the pairing of the Apple Watch, and the Apple Watch is definitely an IoT device.
Yeah.
And it's super secure, and they made it very smooth. I mean, this is best practice in the industry.
Right. You mentioned about device onboarding and decommissioning, and in our Certify project, which aims to secure the complete IoT lifecycle, and there we have identified 5 different phases and stages, starting from design, then bootstrapping, operation, updates, and then the decommissioning. This is what we are doing. It's a consortium project where we have 12 partners from 8 different countries in Europe. And each partner is bringing in different technical components for these different stages. And so similarly for bootstrapping, we are using this mood manager where we create different behavioral profiles of the devices which are stored on the device, and then we monitor if the device is behaving with the predefined behavioral profile. And in the operation phase, we are checking with the incident detection systems, and with the SIEM, we are checking the threats which are happening during the operation stage of the device. And in the update stage, where you talked briefly about update, also patching of the security devices, and this is what Digital Works brings in the project. About can you tell something about the software update process in the project contribution?
Yeah, first of all, what I really like is that this project is looking on the entire IoT lifecycle, like from the beginning to the end. And this is very important because that's reflecting the reality. We don't want to have only a secure bootstrapping. We want to have a secure operation. And of course, we need a secure decommissioning, because decommissioning is a case which often happens on IoT because the device is broke, for example.
Right.
So, and you don't want to introduce then your threat surface to attackers. I mean, this silly. Yeah. So this is super important. The patching and updating of IoT devices is as well a super important topic. That's what our colleagues at Digital Works are bringing in. Mm-hmm. That's one of their deep knowledge. And for IoT, this is more complex than for a laptop because you have different types of connectivity. For example, you have low-powered connectivity, where you can send only a few packets to a device. And on update, maybe you don't getting all the feedback that all packages had been applied in time, or it took super long. I mean, we are used with our high-speed internet that we install within a second gigabyte of data and updates and patches. But for IoT devices, it could take days until a patch is delivered. So this is very challenging. On the other side, it must work very secure. And as these devices are often carried out in fleets with masses of devices, it's really a super challenging topic to do this very reliable, to do it secure, and to do it on a large scale. So.
Okay, so the one last question to you, Mirko. There are a lot of adjectives associated with your name. You are an expert, you are a keynote speaker, you are a hacker, you are an entrepreneur. What is the best adjective which defines you from your point of view, and why?
And that's a good question. I would say it's user. And why?
Yeah.
It's, of course, I like to hack IoT devices and build IoT devices and make IoT devices. But the most favorite IoT device of my life are IoT toys, like from Enki. Mm-hmm. I mean, people out there, if you Google Enki, they are not existing as a own company anymore, but they have been acquired. And they have built this kind of IoT connected racing toys and robots, and with a very good approach, like introducing a new gaming experience or introducing an educational experience, which is only enabled with IoT. And I really like this stuff, to play around, to be curious, to use it. It's fascinating. So I'm a IoT user as well. I don't have a smart home, but I'm playing with Enki. However, of course, as we said, the users as well a challenging.
Yeah, this is quite interesting because you said user is the third most challenging component in the IoT security.
Yeah. But it's important to understand that everybody in the security industry, everybody in the software industry is as well a user. So we are not only part of the solution, we are as well part of the problem.
Right.
And this needs to raise our awareness. And if we say, well, we are eating our own dish, then maybe the products are getting more secure as well.
Right. Yeah, sure. Thanks a lot, Mirko. It was really a pleasure to talk with you on different topics of IoT security, regulations and standards, and how the CRA adaptation looks like from EU perspective and for the IoT device manufacturers. So thanks a lot for your time, and see you soon for another talk.
Hey Rohit, thanks for having me in the show.
Pleasure.
Thank you for listening to today's discussion with Mirko Ross from Ashwin. To learn more about Ashwin and Mirko Ross, go to the website ashwin.io. If you liked our content, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you have any comments, suggestions, or any topics that we should discuss in the next episode of Certify podcast, please leave in the comment section. Thanks a lot. See you all in the next episode.